Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday afternoon to you all. Hope you guys are having a great day out there so far and a fantastic start to your weekend. I got you a pretty big update this afternoon on the tropics. There's been a little bit of changes, a little bit of ticks here and there. So we're going to talk about those and just break down all the morning, afternoon, and even the evening model guidance is starting to come in now. But a lot of the evening model guidance will not run until after I'm done with this video. And as I mentioned this morning, I told you guys I was going to drop a much earlier video today for the PM video than what I normally do. I normally drop one about 7, 8 p.m. in the evenings at night. But I'm heading to a football game tonight. I'm a big Gamecock fan, so watching my team play UNC Charlotte tonight. So I'm dropping this a little bit early. But this is still going to be packed full of valuable information, and there's been some changes. And then we're going to, after we're done talking about the latest updates and what Ian looks like right now, I'm going to go over all the model guidance, GFS, European, and talk about what's driving the strengthening, what's steering this system, and just give you all the latest information. I hate to come on here and just show you guys a bunch of spaghetti plots, a bunch of paths that these models are showing and not really dive deep into why they're showing them. I think a lot of people do that too much. I know some people just don't care about all that. They just want you to tell you exactly where it's going to go, but that's just not what I do. I try to get deep into the scientific reason and try to explain it the best way I can. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Hit that like button for me. It really helps these videos get out there, and I really appreciate the support, guys. I'm going to end up hitting 30,000 subscribers probably here in the next couple days, and you guys have just made this a dream come true. Really just you guys give me a platform to talk about what I love, which is the weather. So I really appreciate all you guys. Hit me up on Twitter. Great way to follow along, getting the latest and greatest information. And more importantly, if you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over tonight as I lay down to sleep and do my prayers, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over, and it gives everybody else an opportunity to do so too. So let's get rocking this afternoon. Hope you guys are having an excellent Saturday. Hope your favorite sports team is winning out there. But anyways, on the weather here. So right now, it's a 45-mile-per-hour storm per the latest information, but this could get upgraded to a 50-mile-per-hour storm per the 5 p.m. update or maybe the 8 p.m. update. But otherwise, we're not expecting much of a change. The actual hurricane hunters are in this right now, and they're finding multiple areas that could potentially be the actual low-level circulation. So that tells us that this storm, even though it looks very impressive out here, which I'm about to show you, is still not got its act together from getting blasted with all that shear when it was deeper into the eastern Caribbean. Remember, we were talking about all that shear that was hitting this storm, and I think it's still dealing with a little bit of shear, but it's still trying to get its act together. It was really blasted by the wake of Hurricane Fiona. So there's still multiple areas of actual spin out there. So I'll show you that here in a second, actually. But so that indicates that this is still trying to get its act together. But as of right now, forecast to become a hurricane as early as tomorrow afternoon, an 80-mile-per-hour hurricane. For you folks in Jamaica, still just tropical storm watches. In the Cayman Islands, you are now upgraded to a hurricane warning. Well, just the far western island of the Cayman Islands here, hurricane warnings up. Just a tropical storm watch for you guys on the eastern areas of the Cayman Islands. So, but the main area of the Cayman Islands, hurricane warnings up. And that's because sometime between Sunday night into Monday morning, you're going to have a strengthening hurricane moving to your south and then southwest and then to your west. So you guys are going to get hit by the dirty side of this hurricane overnight tomorrow night into Monday morning. So you guys are going to feel the effects. But we were thinking this was going to plow right in the middle of the Cayman Islands. It's not going to do that now. The trend west has also really hit the short term too, not just the long term. So we'll keep moving in time. This is strengthening into a high-end hurricane as early as 8 p.m. Monday now, and could make impact as a major hurricane that is a Category 3 or higher in the western areas of Cuba. But I can tell you, the GFS, for example, has this missing Cuba altogether now, and actually going in between Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula. We got to watch Cancun. I've had a couple people ask about Cancun. For you folks a little bit deeper into Central America, I don't have to worry at all. But if you're in the Yucatan Peninsula, especially the furthest tip right here, Cancun, certainly keep an eye on this. But I'm not expecting this to go that far west. But we keep going. Forecast to become a major hurricane between sometime Monday night into Tuesday morning. And I could definitely see this happening Monday night. And then it's saying its peak intensity now is 120 mile per hour Category 3 hurricane somewhere in the eastern Gulf for Wednesday morning, and then forecast to be entering the southern Big Bend areas of Florida around Thursday at 8 a.m. as a 110-mile-per-hour hurricane. That is a high-end Category 2 hurricane. But I can tell you, most model guidance, guys, is west of this cone. It's in the western areas, and we're going to talk about that. But the actual National Hurricane Center site, like I said, hurricane warnings up for the Cayman Islands, especially the western island. Well, honestly, only the western island, not especially. But see that M, major hurricane 8 a.m., and then the H getting close to landfall sometime next Thursday morning. So this is the big deal, guys. This is a threat for many people. The Cayman Islands, not so much Jamaica, Western Cuba, and then somewhere in Florida. And we got to watch Alabama. And, a lot of people have asked, what about Georgia? What about South Carolina? I know I'm from South Carolina, so I think that's probably where I have my most viewers from, is South Carolina, just because I started here. Guys, we don't know. What we do know is if it trends more west, then areas like Georgia, the Carolinas are going to get blasted by that dirty side, which is the eastern side of that tropical system. And normally that's when you have the highest impact winds, rain, and that's when you have that dreaded tornado threat. And we just don't know yet. We really don't. But, I'm not saying you guys don't have to ask, but I'll be honest. I'm just going to give you a whole bunch of answers like I'm not sure, it's too far out. And if I'm the general public, I know that has to irritate the mess out of you guys. Y'all want answers now, but guys, we just don't have answers now. But the latest wind intensity forecast, let's see if there's a new one out, and there is not. You see these purple areas, that is above a 90% chance to see tropical storm force winds. That's 39 miles per hour or higher. But you see the Western Cayman Islands right here. You guys are in anywhere between a 70 and a 90% chance to see tropical storm force winds. You guys are going to get hit. Far western areas of Cuba, you guys are going to get hurricanes force conditions, not just tropical storm force conditions. That's 74 miles per hour or higher. But look, even the Yucatan Peninsula, Cancun, you guys are in this wind field risk. That doesn't mean you guys are going to get tropical storm force winds, but it just gives you the idea that this could tick a little bit further west. And then look at Florida. You guys are starting to get into that 60 to 70% chance to see tropical storm force winds. But this wind field has shifted a little bit further west. And model guidance continues to trend west. But model guidance could continue and do a windshield wiper effect and tick all the way back east. It could do that. It certainly can. It all depends on what this trough does in the eastern U.S. next week and how ridging builds. So let's take a look at Ian right now. It's blowing up intense convection, but it is still disorganized. It is. I can't reiterate that enough. It looks intense. You're seeing bright colors and those cold cloud tops right here indicated by these whites and purples telling us we have intense convection blowing up high levels of the atmosphere. But it is still definitely kind of discombobulated, if you will. But Jamaica, you guys look like you're getting some showers and storms moving into the areas, if not storms. Certainly some cloud cover. So I hope you guys are faring well. So, and that is because of Tropical Storm Ian, but not expecting any major impacts for you guys. Another way to look at this, Ian, an excellent outflow is developing. You see these clouds right here? That is literally the storm almost breathing, if you will. You see this kind of outflow where you have these clouds right in here kind of surging southward out the north, and then you just kind of have an outflow. That is that anticyclonic flow we've been talking about, beginning to take over the storm. So I expect this to look totally different 24 hours from now. It might be a hurricane 24 hours from now. I'm serious. This is going to happen quickly, guys. I can't stress that enough. By the time you might watch one of my videos, you might watch it and it might be 8 hours later, and it could be something totally different and you're watching really old information. But Cayman Islands right in here, you're not seeing much of anything, but you're going to see increased cloud cover overnight, and you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and it's going to look like a different world out there. Not necessarily you're going to wake up to tropical storm hurricane force conditions, but you're certainly going to start to see the cloud cover moving in at minimum. So this is looking like it's gaining strength slowly, but still struggling due to how badly it was sheared over the last several days. Let's look at the GFS. So the GFS for tomorrow morning initializing at a 996 millibar low pressure. And I'm sorry guys for mistakenly saying I was trying to say this morning 1,000 and something millibar low pressure, but I kept saying 100 and something. So if I say 100 millibar low pressure at any time in this video, please know we don't have 100-something millibar low pressure. If that was the case, we would probably have a doomsday situation and a storm system that is just flat out not realistic. But anyways, starting off Monday morning, it's saying that this could be below 1,000 millibar low pressure. And moving forward, it's expecting to strengthen as it's well west of Jamaica. Here's the Cayman Island right here. If the GFS is correct, this is going to miss the Cayman Islands altogether. You guys are certainly going to see some outer bands and stuff, but the GFS is certainly tracking west of that cone of uncertainty that I just showed you. This continues. At this point, it's a major hurricane into probably Monday evening. It's a major hurricane, Category 3 or higher. This somehow managed to slip through the Yucatan Peninsula and western Cuba. It does not get interfered at all with land interaction. That is not good news. Slips into the Gulf of Mexico, and we'll stop this around Wednesday morning. It is a sub 930 millibar low pressure. That is a Category 5 hurricane. I would say borderline Category 4 to Category 5 hurricane. So at this point, major hurricane in the Gulf. And this keeps going, and then look at this number begins to drop, almost 10 to 15 millibars every 6 hours. That is because it begins to interact with a big-time trough that has a ton of dry air and some big-time shear on the northern part of the storm. That's why, and we talked about this morning, this would be an awesome scenario, even though you have some massive, terrible-looking hurricane in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. The good news is, if the GFS is correct, and I can tell you most models are showing weakening upon landfall, then we will not have a strengthening scenario. In fact, this would weaken upon landfall. And by the time this actually makes landfall, you're around a 985, 984 millibar low pressure around Friday morning, making landfall in the far western areas of the panhandle of Florida. So that's a scenario. That would be probably a Category 2, maybe very low-end Category 1, very low-end Category 2 hurricane, if this was to happen. And then look at it. It just moves due north. It gets wrapped up into a ton of dry air. This is going to be an incredible thing to watch if the GFS and the European unfolds. There is going to be some almost polar dry air in the southeast as a big-time cold front moves in early next week. And this is actually going to affect this storm big time, but we just don't know how badly it's going to affect it. Well, we actually should say good, but Sunday morning, the European initializing much weaker. That's why it's kind of hard to believe it, but it's the European historically. It's the most respected and accurate model out there historical wise, but around Monday morning still has this as a tropical storm. That's very hard to believe, but the European is much closer to the Cayman Islands around just throughout the whole entire day Monday as a strong tropical storm. The European wants to say are low-end Category 1 hurricane. Then it gets in this danger zone right here. South of Jamaica begins to intensify very quickly, makes landfall in western Cuba as a Category 1, Category 2 hurricane, continues to strengthen, might begin to rapidly intensify at this point, and you're going to get some kind of rapid intensification. I'm almost guarantee it's somewhere in the Western Caribbean or Eastern Gulf of Mexico. The European will stop this Wednesday morning, has probably a high-end Category 2 hurricane off the southwestern coast of Florida. If we look at Wednesday morning for the GFS, has a near Category 5 hurricane almost in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. You compare this with this, look how much difference there is. But I can tell you, even the European has shifted west. If you compare this with the run 20, let's see, hold on. Let's make sure we get this right. We compare this with, okay, this is right, we're good. We compare this with 12 hours ago. Look at the tick west. See this? It's actually the same strength, but you see that movement west. I'm sorry for the glitch there, guys, but there is a tick west, but it actually maintains the same strength. So it being more west and it just moving in general more north, this actually takes a path more north up the coastline of western Florida. It looks like it makes if we actually get much closer to this, it almost makes a landfall in Clearwater, Florida, then kind of gets back out into the ocean, but still weakening, and then makes an additional landfall into the Big Bend areas of Florida sometime maybe overnight Thursday into Friday morning as a Category 1 hurricane. And then here it goes, whips in a lot of heavy, I would say this would be a chilly rain. And I'll talk to you about why probably in the next video or two. You would think of tropical air mass, there's going to be nothing chilly about this rain, but there's a reason why I'm saying that. And stay tuned for the next couple videos, and I'll explain that more as we know what the real impacts for the actual southeast is going to be off the initial coastline. But the European has a tropical storm riding up through Atlanta, weakening into just a tropical remnants, if you will, and brings a lot of moisture up the coastline. And I can tell you, for a lot of folks in the Carolinas, Georgia, some folks have not seen rain since September 10th. And there's a chance you won't see rain again until this tropical system, which it might be at that point 3 weeks before you've seen rain. So let's take a look at this. It's a much closer look. This is the latest GFS. There's another one that's going to come out in about an hour and a half. Latest GFS, look how strong this hurricane is. You see that number right there, 934 millibar low pressure. Look as this number begins to weaken very quickly. We're getting into Friday, makes landfall for western panhandle of Florida as a Category 1 hurricane, I would say. This is what that probably is. You compare that, this is for Friday morning on the GFS. You look at the European, what does it show for Friday morning? It's way over here and makes landfall sometime late Thursday night into Friday morning as a pretty much about the same intensity, maybe Category 1-2 hurricane. So then it starts to move almost northwest. I'm about to talk to you about why here in a second. So very interesting to see. Latest 18Z model guidance, guys. A tick west continues. I think this morning when I showed you a lot of these members were going this way. Now you have a lot more going more west. So maybe some good news for South Florida, for example. But you guys could still get lashed pretty good depending on how close this tracks. For example, if the operational Euro actually happens, this is going to track so close to the western coastline, you guys would still get kind of almost tail whipped by that eastern side of the storm. Tornado threat, heavy rain, strong wind still there, just maybe not directly impacted. We look at the GFS. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the steering currents and then the strengthening with this. The reason we're going to have some kind of rapid intensification over the later part of this weekend into early next week is because we'll stop it right here. This is for tomorrow evening. At this point, the GFS wants this to begin a rapid intensification mode, meaning it strengthens very quickly over a short amount of time, and the millibars begin to drop very quickly, indicating a strengthening storm. So there is no shear, which is in the blue. No shear bothering the storm, nowhere near the system. This blue you see near the actual L, that is cyclonic-induced shear. Basically, it's not gonna bother this. That's not shear actually being caused by anything else. So anticyclonic flow over the system as this storm is turning like this, well aloft, 40,000 feet up in the air. You got winds spinning like this above the storm. It pushes air away from the middle of the storm, allowing more air to rise, ventilating the storm. The storm is initially breathing clearly, and it allows for explosive development. That mixed with these extremely warm temperatures, almost hot temperatures in the western Gulf of Mexico, where some buoys out here are probably pushing 90 degrees at the sea surface temperature, certainly the mid to upper 80s. RI, rapid intensification for short, is almost certain to occur. So we look at the heights and the ridges and everything like that. So what you're seeing here in the blue, that is troughing. In the orange or in the blue also is low pressures, cutoff lows, upper level lows. And the red you're seeing, or this orange color, that is ridges of high pressure. So we'll start this off around Monday afternoon. Well, Monday evening, I would say. Then we're getting into Tuesday morning at this point, and this is the GFS, right? So you see this trough? This trough brings a lot of dry air to the southeast, but it begins to kind of weaken and just move away in general. Initially, about, I would say 1 to 2 days ago, it was showing this being picked up by this trough, basically pushing it over Florida and then heading on out to sea, potentially even scraping the coastal areas of the Carolinas. No models are showing that anymore. If you live in the Carolinas, I've heard a lot of people ask me on social media, nothing's showing that anymore. But could it show it again? Absolutely. But here we go. At this point, you know, what time frame? We're around Wednesday morning, getting into Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, overnight. We're getting into Thursday morning of this coming week. Basically, the avenue closes for this to escape northeast. And basically, ridging builds over this system. So you got a flow around this weak ridge right here that's pushing on this to move north. And then you got a flow around this that's pushing this, trying to push it west. And almost not, it's slowing the system down. You got competing steering currents, one going this way, one going that way. So one of these pieces of ridge of high pressure has to weaken or move or do something. So what happens here is this ridge doesn't really do anything. It just stays out here in the subtropical Atlantic. And what happens here is the positioning of this ridge kind of tweaks, moves more so over the northeast, if you will. And then it tries to fill this weakness over here. And that's why it begins to kind of just move north. But then again, it ends up just moving north to northeast anyways. And just a weakness in general kind of develops over the eastern U.S. But just the fact that this system kind of has to go somewhere, it's just moving due north. And the steering currents are so weak at this point, there's nothing really truly steering this much. You got some light ridging right here and a ridging up here, but there's just nothing really steering this much. There's not intense steering currents really anywhere in any levels of the atmosphere. So it just moves north and just falls apart. European, here it goes. Same kind of situation. You get this system to move up early next week. It feels this weakness, so that's why it tries to head north-northeast at this point. But I would argue that it just never makes it, and because of that, the trough weakens, and even though there's a weakness right here, it's trying to get out, it's trying to escape, it's moving over Florida, and ridging builds over this. So now you got this flow moving like this. You got a pretty strong tropical storm, low-wind hurricane, just a strong system in general. So it's going to try to move up this ridging as best as possible. Just like any strong storm does. It always tries to move north in latitude. But this ridging kind of tweaks over here, so you got a flow moving around this like this. So this is kind of moving like this, so it's going to try to push this storm back northwest, but then it tries to escape, and it basically just falls apart and gets lost in the pattern at this point. And turns into nothing. So hope that makes sense. So basically, the main avenue for this to escape northeast is gone. Per the latest, I would say the last 36, 48 hours of model guidance was showing this escaping with this trough interaction, but now it doesn't. And ridging builds over this orange, and so you have basically a stationary system that trying to figure out where it's going to go, because basically its route that it was going to take to head on out is gone. So it just kind of meanders over the southeast. It moves, but it just there's no really dominant steering current for it. So another thing we look at, and why we're going to talk about why it's showing almost a rapid weakening. Here it is. You got a Category 5 hurricane around Wednesday morning in the Gulf, in the east central Gulf of Mexico. You're thinking, holy crap, this is going to be another Ida. This is going to be another Laura, Sally. But no, watch what happens. Watch as this number begins to drop, and watch how this brown right here starts to get wrapped up in this circulation. The green you see, that's tropical moisture. And that is because you have a ton of dry air with this troughing over the eastern U.S. and leftover dry air. And look, as this system begins to weaken, the moisture field gets depleted, dry air gets wrapped up into the system and the circulation, it starts to choke it out, and then it weakens. And then you just have a tropical system that completely implodes and falls apart due to the fact of all this dry air getting wrapped into the circulation. So that's pretty much it with that. The last thing I'll show you, the airplane went into it just now and only found a central pressure of 107 millibars. I'm sorry, there we go. I had to say it one time, 1,007 millibars. So it was actually a little bit weaker than it was this morning. And you see this little area right here where the wind barbs abruptly shift. That is indicating the wind directions shift one to one direction or the other. So you have kind of a circulation right here. You got one right here, one right here, one right here. So you got like 4 or 5 center of circulation. So that indicates this is still a messy tropical storm. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and I'll have you a big update in the morning.